Caroline Burrows is not a borrower, and she has promised she will take you to court if you proceed with these nefarious claims. Jesus Christ. We're very excited to have her before she runs away from Bristol to pursue writing, fame and fortune. Please put your hands together for Caroline Burrows.
Okay, this is called Kill the Competition. Una Buchanan, who was yet to make it into the top 50 best-selling British crime authors, looked down at the ethereally beautiful corpse of Carol Browning Thompson, whose sudden demise had catapulted Carol's ranking up to number 7. So young, such a terribly tragic waste, her extraordinary contribution to our genre of fiction will be sorely missed. The words brought Una back into the room, overflowing with the hushed murmurs of mourners, fans, reporters, critics and fellow writers. It was one of the latter category who had spoken. Una turned to look up at someone she'd often wished dead. Morrison Bernard, who said he was in his late 40s, stood over her at 6.5 feet tall. His height partially concealed his expanding waistband, clothed in a bespoke black suit, but not his ego, which is being fueled by his bankability on both sides of the Atlantic. His ratings remain consistently in the top 5. Bernard, said Una, deliberately placing the stress on the first syllable of his surname. She returned her gaze to the open-top casket, framed with pink and white carnations. The deceased's long auburn hair had been arranged to spread out softly on the ivory satin pillow. It made the overall scene exceedingly Ophelia-esque. You sound as trite as one of your main characters, she told him in a respectfully hushed tone. Morrison spoke down to her in his soft baritone. I can assure you, I am not in the least insincere. She was exquisite in her extraordinary use of prose, simply light years ahead of some hackneyed contributions currently in publication. Una took one last look at the serene face of the deceased and placed a hand on Morrison's back, steering him away from the coffin towards a line of mourners waiting to sign a book of condolences. Yes, thank you for your mention you gave me in your sermon for the Guardianistas last week. Morrison leaned against the edge of the pew and took Una's black leather gloved hand and held it in both of his, as if in deep sympathy. I suppose Carol's demise leaves a gap in the market for those thirsting for more Highland detective novels, he said, making a small, sad smile. Una mirrored his expression. Is that going to be part of your eulogy? Are you constructing an epigram? Morrison patted her hand firmly, and Una gently pulled it away from between his and reached up to flick an imaginary piece of fluff from his shoulder. You never know who could be next, she told him. I can't believe we lost Robert Graham so recently too. At this rate, I might be the only one left to speak at your funeral. Morrison nodded and placed a hand reassuringly on Una's black shiffon-covered arm. Yes, it's tragedy after tragedy. It seems a precarious time to be a writer. Una took a step further towards the book signing, making his hand drop away from her body. Or a prolific one, she said. Robert made top 20. Morrison placed his palms together as if in prayer. Una, while it's been absolutely wonderful to see you again, you'll have to excuse me. I must go and give my condolences to David Ransworth III over there. He indicated back in the direction of the casket. Oh yes, the reviewer from the Times. Indeed, he simply adored Carol. He always gave her at least 4 stars, said Morrison as he moved off. Una sat, her laptop open, pushed away from her. The left of her desk was piled high with reference books and medical journals, all of them spread open wide, with little scraps of torn multicoloured post-its sticking out of their leaves, screaming for attention. Copies of police cases, maps and reams of loose notes were stacked in organised chaos on the other side. The room was lit by a selection of lamps, their beams bouncing off the walls and the bookcases stacked deep and high with novels demanding to be read. She sat in the midst of it all, enclosed in a warm embryonic glow, a veritable portrait of the writer at work. Her attention was solely on one solitary piece of paper in front of her. She stared at the names of her fellow authors, listed under the latest bestseller figures for contemporary crimes and thrillers. Next to number 7, she drew a thick black line slowly through the name of Carol Browning Thompson. This ran parallel with a marking at number 18, which cleaved across the name of Robert Graham. In the footer of the page, she added number 51, tutting as she wrote the name of that god-awful novelist, churning out stories from middle-aged, middle-class women about a group of the same solving improbably frequent murders in their otherwise bland home county. Beside 52, she proudly practiced writing her name in a flourish of black capital letters. 23 could go next, she mused. Historical murders for housewives, all kings, corsets and inaccuracies. Should be easy enough. She made notes in pencil. Drinking problem, prescription pill addiction. Who else? 36. Not even worth it. Should be recategorised under novels to fall asleep on the beach too. Next to this author's name, she wrote, primarily resides in Monaco, difficult to get to. She looked at number 12. What an embarrassment to be so high up, she thought. Barely fleshed out plots, soft porn parading as crime. Probably don't need to do anything. A fad. Una felt that her new retreat in Her Majesty Prison Bronzefield should really be classified as being in the West London borders rather than Surrey. Having freed up her diary, she waited patiently at her clean white desk for the Times Literary Supplement subscription to arrive, ready to dedicate a proper stretch of time to reading it. She was in a good place, knowing that finally she was regarded extremely highly amongst her fellow peers, her A-category status entitled her to a room all of her own. She'd stopped requesting library access though. That place unsettled her. She could understand memoirs of life inside populating the shelves. There might even be an angle for her to pen something similar herself, but to have all those crime and detective novels staring down at her, like paperback ghosts, it was unbearable. Her magazine arrived with her evening meal and breakfast pack. She turned the pages to find out what that trumped-up egotist David Ransford III was being paid to wax indignantly about this week. Morrison Bernard's latest novel, Killing the Competition, can only be described as a tour de force in its exceptional yet controversial take on a multiple homicide committed by author Una Buchanan, the dark Sherlock. In this study of a Macbethian descent into madness and murder, Bernard subtly weaves factual reports and forensic evidence into the novel, while skillfully exploiting its unreliable first-person narrator to give a voice and insight into the warped-minded Buchanan, who has always refused to speak of her crimes. Killing the Competition has elevated Bernard's writing into a new literary class, and will be without doubt, critically and commercially, the book of its generation. The prison officer unlocked the cell at 8 a.m. Una sat at the desk hunched over, her dinner cold and untouched, the breakfast pack unopened. The officer knocked loudly on the open metal door. Time for work, let's go. Una did not move. Buchanan, wake up. Nothing. The guard shouted for her colleague and entered the cell. Una was not asleep. Her eyes were half open, her mouth moving slightly. What's wrong with her? The other officer asked from the doorway. The guard leant down to hear what Una was saying. It's all about me, she was murmuring over and over, her eyes fixed on the article beneath her. It's all about me.